We are live. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay. So I just want to welcome everybody to another episode of Motivation and Mindset, weekly program dedicated to positive dialogue about business, life, relationships, etc. I am James Morris. I am the president and CEO of TMC Solutions in Houston, Texas. And I'm here with my brother, Jermaine Morris.
Hey, I'm Jermaine Morris. I'm a certified coach and consultant with a practice based on a DISC assessment. I'm out of Sacramento, California.
Yeah.
We work everything under the premise of self-awareness without judgment. So helping people, whether it be professionally, personally, just helping get a better understanding of ourselves and what it is we want to do with our lives.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So good morning. I know it's a little earlier on the West Coast, but no, man, I'm ready to jump right in. Just like I tell everybody every week, I am not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not prescribing anything. This is just two brothers having some positive dialogue. We're talking is therapeutic for us, but we're hoping to help somebody out. So, hey, man, as usual, great talking to you this week. And, looking at what's happening in the news, I'm always looking at what's happening in my office. And today we're going to jump into the topic of teams, right? Teamwork, the benefit of having a good team around you, personally and professionally, some of the detriments of not having good team around you. And just thought that'd be a good conversation. I know big in the news is this young guy that the basketball player, and I know we don't focus on sports, but this Ja Morant guy, right? And a lot of people are really focused on, his alleged bad behavior. But I think if you peel back, right, let's talk about, the one thing that came out afterwards was before this latest incident that he went through, he had a veteran teammate that started recognizing some behaviors like, hey, guys, every time we go out of town, you guys are really wilding out a bit. No. And, we need to be a little more careful, be a little more self-aware. So it was a Steven Adams, right? And there's a guy that, I'm a Houston Rockets guy. He was in OKC for years, so he was kind of the bad guy. But, they really got me thinking about teams, right? Not necessarily the person at the nucleus, but today let's talk a little bit about the people surrounding him. One of my favorite authors, I talk a lot about Robert Greene. He's the author of the 48 Laws of Power. And one thing that he says is avoid the unhappy and the unlucky. Attitudes are as infectious as diseases. So if you hang around, somebody that's got a negative attitude, somebody that's a bad teammate, there's a good chance that you're going to become a bad teammate. So anyway, on the topic of teams, man, what are you thinking there? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think who you surround yourself with is huge. They'll say, show me your 5 best friends, I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
Who we surround ourselves with, our friendship circle, our relationships we get involved with, even in school when you're a little kid and they would separate you from your friend because every time you sat next to that person, you were disrupting class and talking too much and this and that. Yeah. Who we surround ourselves with is a direct influence on us.
Yeah, and absolutely.
Looking to see either are they the present of what's right, what we need, or are they the presence of what's wrong?
Right.
Because sometimes they may not be the one that's doing the wrong stuff, but they're not an influence to help us to do the right stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that's what you need. Yeah. I know in business, one of the things that I have struggled with throughout my career is I've not always had the ability to pick my teammates, right? Sometimes you're thrust onto a team and you try to figure out, and, not to be too cliche today, but you often hear that, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And as I think about in business, if I think about my current companies or even when I was in corporate America, when I used to think about the breakdowns, right? Because we would typically have operations, IT, quality, HR, and finance. Okay. and we were working pretty much as a cohesive unit. But if IT was the weakest link, it impacted manufacturing. If finance was the weakest link, we weren't getting our books closed on time, or the money forecasting was off, or if HR was the weak link, now we have bad behavior going unaddressed. And so I understand strongly, especially as a business owner, the value of having a strong team. And what I can tell you is anytime that I have kind of laxed and allowed that rotten apple in, we've paid for it. Yeah. And we've paid for it from an employee morale perspective, because nobody wants to work with that one employee, right? Yeah. That bad teammate. So it creates negative feelings. It's cost me money, whether it was, missing a budget number or less productive, or we're not purchasing at the most optimum levels. And so I certainly appreciate and value, having a good team around me. You got to have it, right? Again, as a sports fan, as an ex-athlete, I understood that when I had good teammates, we were able to go off and we won a lot with good teammates. And I understand how a bad teammate could tear up our locker room, how we would lose to teams that were inferior. Yeah. And so, that's kind of my experience, right? I see it in business. I come out of manufacturing. So if you think about a manufacturing assembly line, where you've got 50 people on an assembly line, and your goal is 1,000 units an hour that have to be produced. Well, can you imagine the impact of one bad teammate? Now, all of a sudden, you're doing 800 an hour. Man. Everything's backed up at their station, right? You can't move forward, right? And now you're in a situation where what do you do about it? Do you ignore it? Do you try to overcompensate for them? Do you kick them off the team? Yeah. Right. So, so that's really, from a business perspective, that's kind of my experiences. But talk to me a little bit about, on a personal side, right, about the importance of having a good teammate or not having a good teammate.
Yeah. So the importance of having a good one. So first off, we'll qualify a good teammate personally. And so, because I think there's a metrics that you can use for a quote unquote bad employee. Like you can say this person does not hit the level of productivity. They don't move at this particular speed. They don't close this many accounts. Like there's metrics to gauge if they're a bad employee. But when we start talking about our friends or interpersonal relationships, regardless of how the dynamic between us and them, that does not make them bad people. So sometimes the hard part is that somebody can be a bad fit, but it does not make them a bad person.
Right.
And so it's harder when you're talking about, well, I need to stop being friends with this person because our lifestyles are not in alignment, but they're not a bad person.
Right.
So it's like, well, no, there's nothing wrong with, if you got the type of job that you can go to the club, that you can go and hang out and you can do all these things, you're not wrong for doing that. But if I can't hang out with you because I got to get up at 4 a.m.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not wrong for wanting to, go out and do this, this, and this. But I'm married now with kids. I can't be out with you on the single life.
Mm-hmm.
You're not wrong for living your single life, but that's no longer in alignment with the life that I'm trying to live.
Wow.
So sometimes it's removing that. You're not a bad, because that's what makes it hard to dissolve some friendships or walk away from some people, because they're not bad people.
Yeah.
They didn't do us dirty. They didn't do us wrong. But sometimes you have to look at, okay, it's kind of when you're building your team. That's why you can trade one player who was unproductive with you, but they're an all-star on the next team they get on. Yeah, because that was a better fit. That was more in alignment with what they were doing. So getting the people that are in alignment with what we want to do, are in alignment with our value system, the ones who are on the mission that we're on, is important. Because if they're not, they're going to pull us away from what it is that we're trying to do, or disrupt the process of where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
So having that real look at, like, okay, who do I keep getting in trouble with? Like, who do I, like, where is the hitches?
Yeah.
And then looking at, oh, I do better with this person. Like, me and person A go to the gym and we get a workout in, but I go hard when I go with person B.
Yeah.
Okay, so I probably need to go with person B more.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with person A. We may have fun and laugh and joke and talk about whatever, but if I'm at the gym to get results, I get more results with person B. So let me get the people around me that fit what it is I'm trying to do in that life I'm trying to build.
Yeah. So when you identify someone as maybe a bad teammate, a bad partner, um, where do your obligations lie? Like, so the school that I come from I can remember, you go back to school days, right? And I try to carry myself appropriately as much. Again, boys will be boys, but I can remember coaches being like, "Hey, man, you're a leader, so I'm going to assign you to this knucklehead, and I need you to bring him along."
Okay.
So I think and I find that in business because I talked about having an HR organization. Sometimes you can't just blow a bad teammate out the door.
Yeah.
So what I have found, and I want to hear your opinions of it from the personal side, is how do you turn a bad teammate into a good teammate, right? And I think it becomes there's certain things for me where you start to decide is this person worth bringing along, right? Now, if they're dealing with things that are impacting money, morals, or morale, then it's probably better to cut them. But if it's somebody that's maybe dealing with motivation or lack of knowledge, I find that, okay, maybe I could be a big brother. Maybe this is where I have to be a coach, put my arm around this person's shoulder and try to, hey, man, if you keep doing that, it's going to cost you. Why don't you come with me and let me show you? Let's go to lunch and let's talk about it. So, I mean, do we cut the bad teammate or do we try to get the teammate to come along? And then I guess if you try to get them to come along and they don't come along, then we go back to option A, which is cut the teammate.
So this goes starting with yourself. I'm a firm believer about self-awareness, about knowing yourself first. Do I operate with clear communication, honesty, and transparency as an individual question? Okay. If I don't, then that needs to be something I address before I worry about my teammate. Second, once I do, or to the best of my ability, have an honest, transparent conversation with the friend. Like, what is the issue? Like I said, I don't have an issue with the way you live your life. I don't have an issue with how you get down, like per se, as for you. But for what I can be involved with, I can't be around that.
Right.
Like for how we used to hang out pre-baby, pre-marriage, I finally discovered my career, I finally got some goals. Like when I was just floundering, we could have did whatever.
Sure.
But that's not the dynamic anymore. So this is where I'm at now. So I'm going to be clear with you about where it is that I want, what I'm trying to get to. And I can't hang with you like I used to hang with you.
Right.
And so if you have the clear conversation, like not just ghosting somebody or just because if the goal is to still be able to bring them along, people don't know it's an issue till you tell them.
Right.
And so if it's like, look, because they're like, oh man, I just went to the bar because we always went to the bar. I mean, we can go to the movies if you want. A clear conversation may change everything we're worried about in our head. So as I said, so the clear conversation, the transparency is like, okay, I know we used to get down like this. We was, making it rain every Tuesday. We were, at the pool hall till 3 a.m. We was this, and this. But I'm trying to make some changes. I'm trying to go in this direction. And so me and you, our relationship is fine. Like we don't have a trust issue, if that's what we're talking about. We don't have lying. We don't have stealing. Like we're cool in that respect. We just, our behaviors need to change together.
Yeah.
And give them the opportunity. They may be like, all right, well, I'm going to do me. I'll see you when I see you. Or they may be like, okay, because our relationship is so tight, I'm not going to stop doing me, but we can come up with a couple of extra things for when I'm with you.
Right.
But all that starts for the conversation, being honest.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that because what I was thinking about, and you hit on it, those relationships, because I think what I tend to find is I know who I want to be. I want to be a leader. I want to be a good teammate. I want to be a good partner. Having that discipline to not slip in and out, right? And I think you said, like, I have buddies that are very different, right? And they might be listening in. So I got a buddy B. I don't know if you know B, but B is my guy, man. We've been buddies for 30 years. And B was a wild dude when we was growing up. So I know when I get with B, we're gonna really be kicking it. Yeah. While I got another guy, buddy of mine and colleague, and we've been friends for the same amount of time, Anthony. Anthony's married. Anthony is, very in tune with his faith. Yeah. We collaborate on some business ideas, and when Anthony and I are together, we have a very different interaction than me and B. Neither one of them are bad, but they're very different. And I think what happens is, and I know we're talking about teams, but I'm just sometimes, floating in and out, right? And so where I think a lot of people struggle, and feedback that I've gotten, and even in self-reflection, it's making that decision on what side you want to be on, or even do you have to make a decision, right? And I think it comes down to conflict. I think sometimes some stuff you just got to let go, where there's other times, as you just said, you can still have a relationship, but I guess you have to have boundaries and barriers, right? Yeah. You got to know when to cut it off. And so that's just something that I think about, on the personal side. Again, I'm just talking now as a consumer of the information, but, so now, you kind of talked about being a bad teammate, or less defining what that is. Yeah. What's a good teammate, right? What's the expectation of a good teammate?
Yeah. So those friends, those significant other, shoot, those family members, like, sometimes you don't have to go outside the family. We got cousins who were this and cousins who were that, just when we pick those people who are like I said, who we're in alignment in our values, who are uplifting, who are supportive, compassionate, empathetic, the ones that are more of a support structure, the ones that we can kind of lean on, that we can learn from. Like you're checking the boxes in the benefits part of what you're trying to do, And so when we're saying who's a good teammate, and that's not always because they agree with us, because sometimes the better teammates actually challenge us,
absolutely,
and make us uncomfortable. And, I would say that relationships are reflections and reverberations. So when you get a relationship with somebody, an intimate relationship, a really close friendship, a tight closeness, it's a mirror placement in front of you that shows a reflection of the parts of us that we can't see with our vision, and a reverberation of the energy and the vibrations that we give out.
Okay.
So when you get your teammate, they're going to give back to you all these things about yourself that you can't see through your vision, your prism of scope that you can see things out of, and they're going to reverberate back what it is you're vibrating out.
Okay.
So a good teammate is somebody who allows you to see those things that you can't see, and feel those things that you don't know you're giving off. So when we get a good teammate, that's why, like in interpersonal relationships, when we get a romantic partner, that is the epitome of that reflection and reverberation. And so that space of being uncomfortable may not feel fun, but it's definitely beneficial. There's a lot of learning that happens there, and a lot of growth happens there.
Okay.
So you're saying, what does a good teammate look like? A good teammate doesn't just tell you what you want to hear. A good teammate is, after the experience, you find growth, you find better perspective, you find a deeper understanding, moving towards in the direction that you want to move with, that's in the alignment with the values that you have.
Yeah. I tell you, I like that. So we've kind of covered really what's a bad teammate. We talked about what's a good teammate. Yeah. What I like, and what you always bring up every week, is self-accountability.
Yeah.
See, I tend to put that aside a little bit sometimes. We'll get back to that. But, I appreciate the fact that, holding yourself accountable, right? And every week when we do these shows, I'm hoping to help somebody, and I love the exchange and just getting to work with you. But I take this personally, right? I'm looking at this, okay, it goes something that I've gotten that I can help be a better person this week, right? So that's a big purpose of doing this show with you every week. But what comes to mind now is, and I can only imagine where it could go on the personal side, but I'm gonna stay on the professional side to be safe. And I'll start with an observation. I've had observations where I worked in organizations where, so if I was comparing two organizations, I would say, man, I had this person was the greatest accountant that I ever worked with, and this one was average, right? And then I start to go through the organization, and so maybe I had a team that had a 10, a person on a scale of 1 to 10. I had a 10 and a 2 and a 9 and a 4, and together, right, we had an average of whatever.
Yeah.
But then I had a team that had 5 7s. Right. And so the overall average, I didn't have any 10s. And my point that I'm trying to make, I know I kind of went around the bush to get here, is chemistry.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's something that I've noticed, even on, maybe on the personal side, right? You think about, well, here's a relationship side, right? Or here's a manager that I've worked with. Yeah. And this person seemed to be so perfect. They had the right look, the right height, the right weight, whatever. Right. And they just seem perfect. But for some reason, it didn't work. Right.
Okay.
And it's because of they might have been a 10, and maybe at the time I was a 2. I don't know. But, talk to me from I'm gonna lay on the couch for a second. And I want to talk about chemistry.
Okay.
Right. The chemistry of a good team. Right. You think about, the dream team's probably the original dream team is probably a horrible example, because then you had a bunch of 10s, but they all had great chemistry.
Okay.
Right. Or if you think about the teams that we would have expected to win championships every year forever, but for some reason they could never get over the hump. Right. How come Charles Barkley never won a championship? Right. And I love Barkley, so I'm gonna pick on him. But the reality is, it's chemistry, right? It's team chemistry. It's not enough parts that are above average. But anyway, talk to me a little bit about chemistry from your perspective, right? And, kind of put it in the context on the personal and the professional if you're comfortable with it. But talk about chemistry.
Because ability doesn't equal compatibility.
Wow.
So you can be a 10 in whatever it is you're doing. That doesn't mean that you are compatible with anybody in the room. You'll find those people who go on these internet streets now, and everybody's talking about what I bring to the table. I'm this, and this. Okay, well, how come you can't find nobody?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, just ability does not equal compatibility.
Yeah.
So these people who are like, I'm a phenomenal all-star in 5, I'm a 10 in all 5 categories, but in the 6th one plays well with others. No, I'm a 2.
Right.
Okay, well, you don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to articulate your emotions. You're not transparent in your thoughts, your words, and your behaviors. You don't really show empathy or compassion for other people. Like you're like, so yeah, you're good at what you do in your particular thing.
Right.
But it doesn't transfer over.
Right.
Like I said, I would rather take a 7 who's a 7 in being a team player than you a 10 who's a 2 as a team player.
Yeah.
They don't have all your skill sets and abilities, but their ability to get other people involved, to encourage others, and to get more out of the people around them is a higher value than you being an individual isolated 10.
Yeah. Yeah. My experience with that is I've played, and even, in life, that I found that, where somebody may not have been the best scorer.
Yeah.
Right. Or they may, I'm just using in the context of basketball. Right. But they had the ability to make everybody around them better.
Yeah.
And what I have found just through default, right, it wasn't through any conscious evaluation, but I can definitely tell you I've been in situations with that 50-point per game score.
Yeah.
And I've been on teams with that person that just made me better and made everybody around them play better. And as a result, we had a lot more victories, right? That's the team that I wanted to play on.
Yeah.
Right. I remember Jordan, first 7 years, nobody wanted to play with him, right? Because he wasn't fun to play with. But his stat lines were great, right? You look at Russell Westbrook, right?
Yeah.
He's a stat machine, but unfortunately, nobody wants to play with him. And, I've got people in my organization, right, that are very skilled, but they're hard to work with, right? And there comes a point where you start to say, well, at what point does the bad start to outweigh the good? Like it doesn't matter how good you are if you're making it so difficult just to get the most basic of things done. So I think that's a chemistry issue, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
So keeping with, take it with your Jordan analogy. There's two players that do not get much credit when it pertains to of the last 30 years in the NBA of being that piece. Number one is Derek Fisher. Every championship that Kobe Bryant won, he won with Derek Fisher.
Okay.
And Derek Fisher was pivotal in keeping that Kobe Shaq stuff as tampered for as long as it lasted.
Mm-hmm.
Derek Fisher left LA, went to Utah, took a Utah squad that hadn't seen the postseason in a minute, took that young squad to the playoffs. Bring him back to LA, they go on a run. Kobe gets his rings back. There's a compatibility part, his ability to communicate to a 10, ability wise, who was kind of lacking in the team player aspect.
Yeah.
Derek Fisher was phenomenal about that. Bridging the young guys with the skilled, the less skilled, the super skilled. Like he was a really good pivotal piece. A lot of people don't recognize him that way. And the other one, when it pertains to Jordan, was actually Dennis Rodman. And because what Dennis Rodman did, he was fundamentally great. Everybody thinks of Dennis Rodman as a rebounder. But what Dennis Rodman did and why that Bulls team was so phenomenal with Jordan is Dennis Rodman got Michael Jordan a second shot. From being really, Michael Jordan was an assassin with the ball, but Dennis Rodman got him a second look.
Yeah.
And by chance that ball didn't go in the first time, Dennis got him a second shot at the basket. And just that piece of being in position to allow the next guy, to allow the 10 to be a 10. Like sometimes that complementary piece is doing the stuff that you don't even think about.
Yeah.
It's doing the little things. It's the one who talks to this person for you. It's the one who knows how to approach this one. It's the one who knows how to set up the 10 to be the 10.
Yeah. So that brings me probably to, and I know we're getting, kind of into our time, but what that makes me think about, and I love that analogy, right? When I think about D. Fisher and I think about Rodman, I think about, Martin Lawrence and Will Smith in the Bad Boy movies, right? Where, and I mean, I'm just me personally, like the chances of me going to see a Martin Lawrence movie is probably slim to none, right? I mean, just not my genre, but the chance of me missing a Bad Boys movie because, again, that team, right, that chemistry. But so let's talk a little bit about when you identify that somebody may have that special skill set. Yeah. So now we're going to kind of turn the mirror back on ourselves, right? Look a little internally. Having good teammates around us is important.
Yeah.
Being a good teammate is critical.
Yes.
Right. Under all circumstances. If you got no good teammates around you, if you got 5 good teammates around you, being a good teammate is critical, right? So I think one of the responsibilities of being a good teammate is making the people around you feel better, work better, operate more efficiently. Yeah. Make them feel like they're supposed to be there, that they're wanted. And so as far as us, right, we turn back as an individual being a good teammate. Let's talk about when you see the payroll clerk that's not getting it done, right? I just use that as an example. So if my payroll clerk is watching, I'm not talking about you. But when you talk about, the manufacturing associate that's slacking or lagging, right?
Yeah.
When you think about, being in a relationship, right, and you want to, this is a person that you want to be with, so you got to kind of bring them along, or, let's talk about not only having good teammates, but let's talk about your responsibilities as a teammate. What are my responsibilities? What are your responsibilities as being a good teammate?
Okay, so one of them that falls in between those two examples is recognizing if you have a good teammate. So you can have a phenomenal teammate, but if you can't recognize it, what difference does it make?
Right.
Somebody that you picked for your organization, picked for your life, picked for whatever, who's got all this great information, this great insight, these great abilities, but you don't ask them, you don't rely on them, and you don't lean on them. Why do you have them? So if you're saying, how do I be a good teammate? Let me recognize who my teammates are.
Okay.
Like, am I just operating in a space of, well, this is me, and then this is what I want to impose upon them, or this is me and how I'm reacting to how they behave, or is this me being a good teammate, actually getting to really know the people who are on my team?
Yeah.
Because some of us aren't aware of all of our gifts. That's the reflection, the reverberation. So sometimes we can see things in others that they can't see in themselves. So if we just respond to what they show us, we're like, oh no, let me get to know you. Oh no, you've got a couple more levels in here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, let me be a good teammate by knowing my team. And so, okay, this is how she works better. Maybe she's missing on payroll because the environment I placed her in. Oh, I figured out she actually works better and more efficiently by herself. And I've got her in these community cubicles where she's constantly getting distracted by the HR person across from her, the salespeople who are 2 feet away from her, all the traffic in the office. Oh, that's why. Let me get her own spot, because that's where she's thrives. Oh, now payroll, we efficient.
So we have an obligation, if we're a good teammate,
Yeah,
we've got some obligations to put our team members in the best positions to be successful, right? Now, we can't make them successful,
yeah,
but we can set them up, or we can try to set them up for success.
yeah. Rodman wasn't shooting for Jordan. Rodman just got him the ball.
Yeah.
Them 20 rebounds was just Rodman giving Mike a second look, giving Scotty a second look at the rim. Now they got to put the ball in the basket, but I'm gonna put you in position that you have a higher probability for success. I'm adding to you what you naturally do. I'm using my ability to be compatible, as opposed to just resting on my abilities or just trying to be compatible as I'm just going to do for you, and I'm not using my strengths and my skills. That's why we put the two together.
Yeah.
So when you're helping your teammate, what are my individual abilities? Okay, my abilities is being an effective communicator. Okay, so how do I use that ability to be the best teammate?
Yeah.
My ability is I'm really great at rules, regulations, setting protocols, all that. Okay, how do I use that ability to tap into my teammate and combine ability and compatibility? I think that would make the best teammate.
Yeah. I could tell you a place where, and again, I don't want to sound arrogant by any means. That's certainly not how I mean it. But, one of the places where I've struggled is I do want to be a good teammate.
Okay.
Right. And, this has been in business, on a rare occasion in sports. But, I study. I joke around a lot about being a recovering workaholic, to where my life, I live to work. I didn't work to live, right? I just wanted to, I'm happiest at my desk.
Yeah.
But what I found is that, we talked earlier about you may have a player on the team that's a 10 and he's surrounded by a group of 3s. And when you average it out, maybe we're 4 or 5 and it works. But, a place where I've really struggled is when I was the best player on the team. And what I found is that I found myself becoming impatient with my teammates. I found myself being, lacking some tolerance. I found myself coming across, even though it wasn't my intention, like I just want to get stuff done.
Yeah.
But I come across as being, arrogant, difficult, pushy. Oh, he think he better than us, and he's so arrogant. They like to call us arrogant.
Yeah.
And a host of other adjectives I don't even want to go into. But, I don't think the right answer is to dumb myself down. But I do know that, I got to humble myself in some instances, right? And I'm trying, that's something that I'm working on, right? I'm trying to figure out how to be more patient, right? Not patient to a fault, but again, Usain Bolt don't have a right to get mad because he's going out and there's nobody pushing him. When you're the fastest guy in the world, you want to be pushed, right? You want to get better. And, I think that's a place where I've struggled in business. And because we're in a small company. And so I have people on multiple levels, right? I mean, I got everything from a $15 an hour manufacturing operator to a highly compensated, officer, right? And I'm having to deal with them, and it's tough, right? It's tough because you're pushing. And I think what I find myself doing is being a good player, but maybe not always being a good teammate. So in your experience, we've talked about, again, the good teammate and the bad teammate. Now, we now may be in a situation where the best player on the team is actually being a bad teammate. So how can we really approach it? And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I definitely want your opinion. How do the better players become better teammates?
So when you find people who are super competitive, it's because there's a particular challenge that they've set for themselves.
Okay.
It's most sales, move most units, make most money, whatever that challenge is that they put in front of them. Taking that same energy and applying the challenge of, how do I relate to this person better to get more out of them? Mm-hmm. Taking that same degree of competitiveness into making that challenge work. Like one of the most super competitors on basketball was Kobe. Yeah. Kobe was a super competitor. And Kobe learned like 6-7 languages for 2 reasons. Well, maybe 3. One, maybe he just wanted to learn it to say that he could learn it. The second reason was he wanted to learn the languages of his opponents in the league so he could trash talk them in their native language.
I've actually read that before.
Yeah, he learned French to insult Tony Parker. He learned like all these languages just so he could badmouth them and to throw them off. But he also learned the other languages of his teammates, because back when he was playing with
Paul Gasol.
Well, even before, like Sasha Vujacic and was it Radmanovic, whatever. He had all these guys, Eastern European players that came over. He was learning their languages, to speak to them, which created a bond, which opened up a line of communication that they received his instruction better. So it was like, so sometimes it's taking on the challenge of, it's not how can I just score 60 a night is my challenge. Yeah. How can I get the guy who's getting 8 a night to get to 16? What is, if any, can I do to facilitate that?
Right.
And taking that same degree of accepting that challenge of bringing my teammate along as the same as my own personal accolade, taking that same degree of ownership of that particular challenge.
Yeah.
And so you're saying, so in person, if you're talking about personally, how do I, help the people that are around me? It's like I said, it's not a metric when we talk about like friendships or relationships or something. But if it's like having the transparent, honest conversation with them, are these things that you want? Are these aspirations you have? Are these things that you want to do? And if they say yes, because they have to buy in, they have to want to make any changes or this to grow, then looking for all the different ways that we can work together to make that fit. My natural thing may be to say, man, let's talk about cars. That's how we gonna bond. We're gonna be tight because we talk about cars. Yeah. But then if I talk to them and I realize they don't care about cars. Maybe they care about basketball. Okay, can I take on the challenge of learning about basketball? So that's where I can meet them where they are, so we can still facilitate that bond.
Yeah, I like that. We could. I was just looking at the timer, and I had so many things that have come into my head. We may have to talk about it offline because, I love the sports analogies and the parables, and they certainly relate, right? And again, I use this as I like you call it self-reflection without judgment. Now I'm starting to think about, a sports parable, but as it relates to real life. I'm thinking about this situation with Lamar Jackson, right? Superstar athlete for the Baltimore Ravens. Been looking for a huge, $230 million contract. The team that he plays for doesn't want to pay him. So what they do is they make him a restricted free agent. So for those of you that don't know what a restricted free agent is, that means here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you permission to go off and talk to other teams.
Yeah.
And if they're willing to pay you $230 million, then we'll pay you $230 million. But if you go test the market and you're not getting, you're going to have to take what we give you. And I say all that to kind of come back to my point. When we get on a team, we got to make a decision that we want to be a good teammate.
Yeah.
Right. And what you don't see in sports today, because it is about business, is okay, we got to be committed to the team.
Yeah.
Right. I can hear when people sign these big contracts and say, I'm gonna be a Laker for life.
Yeah.
I remember when Magic Johnson signed a 25-year deal, knowing that he wasn't going to pay 25, but he said, I'm going to be a Laker for life. I think that's an aspect, right? And my point is, you can't really be a good teammate if you're already thinking about free agency. If you're already thinking about, man, as soon as my contract's over, I'm quitting this team. I want to go play on another team, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's an aspect of, you don't want to be a bad teammate. You want to be a good teammate. Just because you're a good player doesn't mean you're a good teammate. You need to try to be that. But then I guess there's an aspect of you need to show commitment to the team, right? To your team. When I walk into TMC every day, my team needs to know that I'm committed to them.
Yeah.
And I work hard to do that, right? Whether it's me cooking a meal in the kitchen for them or making sure they got snacks, or when the company does well, paying bonuses and letting them know it. Maybe it's making sure everybody gets one of these cool TMC shirts to wear around the office. But, that's something that I guess shouldn't be underestimated.
Oh, no,
because it is appreciated, right?
It's huge. And so taking that to a personal dynamic, we do that in relationships.
Right.
The same thing that the Ravens are doing. We'll say, well, if you think the way I'm treating you is not up to par, go on out there and see what these streets have to offer.
Yeah. Well, I've heard it a million times. if your woman give you permission to go talk to another woman to see if you can get a better relationship, it's probably over, right?
Yeah. But we'll do that stuff, and if you think that my timetable is too slow, if you think that my whatever is not whatever, all right, we'll go out there and see what else is out there.
But isn't that a sign of feeling? Isn't that? I mean, so when you cut through the vibrato, and the verbose, isn't that a sign of just feeling unappreciated?
On whose side? So
the person telling you, hey, if you don't like it, move around, right? Or I'm doing the best that I can, and it's not good enough because you're complaining about it every day. So maybe this isn't where you ought to be.
Maybe. Sometimes it's a feeling of, I think maybe the other person has false expectations of what this is. So if you're, before we get too deep down the rabbit hole, if somebody has got a belief system that does not seem realistic to the person they're speaking to, okay. Like you're supposed to make $200,000 a year, put me in a big house, you're supposed to take 4 vacations a year, we supposed to A, B, C, D, whatever. Like, okay, you go out there and see if that's the case. Like if you think that that's how this is supposed to go, you think this is see how many people are living that life, see how many people are offering that life, and then come back when you find out that the average person is making 45 grand a year, then come back and see like if what I'm doing is so wrong.
Yeah.
So sometimes that could be the case. It's like, if you think it's greener, have at it. And so sometimes that conversation, we'll do stuff like that, in relationship. You think I'm so bad? You think I'm so horrible? Your boss will tell you, you think it's the worst job in the world? See what they paying across the street.
Right.
And so for that, sometimes it's to give perspective.
Yeah.
Like you think that this is, this ain't what you think it is, then go see what it really is.
Yeah.
But I think all that goes into having honest, transparent communication, being aware about yourself, about who you are. Are you Kobe or are you Derek Fisher? What is it that you have to offer? If there's issues, I see your son has chimed in on the comments. He said, accountability is key. Any excuse is not an excuse. I'm a firm believer that the only difference between an explanation and an excuse is the spelling. One of my mantras. So when we can look at, okay, if things are not happening a certain way or they're going in a certain direction, what is it that I can do? What are the lengths that I can take? Because accountability is not conditional.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not based upon, well, she did this, she act right, then I'll act right.
Right.
If they do this, then I'll do that. It's not, accountability is not conditional. So if I'm trying to be the best teammate, how can I be the best teammate? Am I trying my best to figure out ways to communicate and reach out? Am I being honest about what I'm thinking and feeling to what are the words that are coming out of my mouth? Am I challenging myself to be the better teammate the same way that I'm challenging them to reach the goals that it is that I want them to reach? And if it's in a personal dynamic, if we're not where I would like us to be within our friendship, within our relationship, whatever, am I taking in the comments and critiques from the teammate I've got? The reflection and the reverberation. Am I looking at what they're trying to show me? Am I feeling what they're telling me they're feeling? Or am I just walling up because this is me and I know me and I'm not, and that's on them. So I think, and how do we pick a good team and be a good teammate is know what type of teammate we are and then be honest with, are we being the best teammate to them? And that can't happen unless we ask them.
Yeah.
If you never asked your teammate, can I do things differently? Can I do things better? How can we work this out better? You're already not doing your best to be the best teammate.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you don't have to ask. They're going to let you know. They're going to let you know.
What they'll do is they'll voice what they're fed up about.
Okay.
But there may be 6 or 7 underlying things that have yet to come to conversation.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, you don't want to just be addressing the overflow.
Right.
Right. We're just addressing the spillage. We're
just putting some tiles down around the bucket.
Yeah. Let's address the root, not the overflow.
Yeah. Well, I love it. And, accountability is a word that I've heard a lot today. Glad James III chimed in. Transparency, has been a word. I've heard that word quite a bit lately. I love this because, again, I look at this as therapy, right? I'm trying not to hire a therapist, although I probably will be anyway. But, as I think about, from a reflection perspective, where I typically consider myself a pretty good teammate, personally, professionally. I look at me as kind of being that guy. As I listen to it, right, and I take down the arrogance, I think that there's probably been some instances where I've been more focused on being a good player than being a good teammate. And the result of that is, while I may be getting the successes that I want, right, or getting the wins, and if I'm not getting them, I'm worried about getting them, that I've not made the people around me better. So, I'm going to take this conversation and, I'm going to apply it, right? I'm going to apply it to saying, okay, I can still be a good player. I can still score a lot of points. I can still be successful in my endeavors of TMC and Morris Motivation and coaching. But it doesn't mean I can't be a good teammate, right? I don't have to be a hog, right? They say pigs get fed, hogs get killed, or something like that. Or, I live
in Texas.
Yeah, I'm deep. I'm in the deep. But hey, man, that's a good this has been a great conversation, right, about teamwork. Again, I'm taking it all in personally. I'm hoping that other people are listening. I think last week across the combined platforms, we probably touched 10,000 people,
Yeah.
which that blew my mind to see that. That's pretty awesome. So those of you that are listening live, I appreciate you listening. Those of you that are going to hear this later on tonight or tomorrow, I appreciate you listening. I hope that, between me and, my much smarter than me baby brother is sharing something that's going to help someone. And, with all sincerity, these conversations are really helping me. So, the thing I'm taking from this week is, what can James Morris do professionally,
Yeah.
personally, recreationally, to be a better teammate, right? So that's what I'm going to focus on this week. And I'm going to keep digging into my bag of things that I need to work on, and then we'll keep bringing those topics, because I'm assuming that if I'm going through it, somebody else is going through it too.
Definitely.
And while we may not have the answers, because, again, we're not doctors, lawyers, or prescribing anything, a lot of times we just need to talk, right? And so that's it. Hey, what do you have? I have a couple things I want to close on, but anything you want to hit us with on the close?
Well, that I just think, as always, I would start with self-awareness without judgment, of just looking at who and how we are as individuals, not through the premise of good or bad, right or wrong. Let's just get a good look. For anybody who's interested in doing, that's what I focus on. So you can go to mykeystome.com. That I give an assessment test, which shows how we deal with problem solving, interacting with people, how we pace we work at, our ideal and least effective communication styles, potential blind spots in our behavior, all that sort of stuff. So you can go to mykeystome.com and set up a consultation. We can give you information, get you started on the test or coaching programs, all that sort of stuff. So I think that the better that we understand ourselves, start there, then that helps us better relate to the people that are around us and in our lives.
Absolutely. And those of you that have thought about getting a DISC profile, I love it. Not only do we talk about it, but I'm a customer. My company prescribes to the DISC profiles. We Jermaine is our supplier for that. Every leader in this company goes through a DISC profile. And what I can tell you is that it helps you with your relationships. It helps us to deal with each other better. It gives us great insight on who we're working with, right? And we have been able to make much smarter hiring decisions. So my keys to me, I definitely encourage everybody to go out there and get an assessment, get a profile, is well worth it. I'm James Morris. I'm president and CEO of TMC Workforce Solutions. We're a national staffing firm. We're in Texas, Indiana, Kentucky, Wisconsin. We got people all over the United States doing light industrial. So if you're looking for a job, or if you're in need of staffing services, I certainly encourage you to give us a call. 833-TMC-WORK is our phone number. That sounded real commercial. I'm also CEO of Morris Motivation, where we're doing business coaching, and we're working with a lot of firms right now across the United States. I can't name them because we're under confidentiality agreements, but we're doing some wonderful things on the business coaching side. We're helping people to make improvements in their business. So that's really all I had. This has been another great week. I think we used up the better part of our full hour. And again, I think we could talk for another hour just on managing relationships. And what I'm finding is managing ourselves, right? And, that's really the part that I'm taking away from it, right? So I have made a commitment today to be a better teammate personally. I'm going to be a better teammate professionally. Sometimes I may pass the ball instead of taking that extra shot, and, it'll help. So, hey, man, this is great. I love that we do this every week. Looking forward to next Friday. I think I'll be coming to you from Georgia again, but I'm going to get someplace and we'll log in and we'll do the show from Georgia. So there'll be a few more miles between us. You're in the north. I understand the weather's about to get really nasty down south, huh?
It's supposed to rain all week. So it's made its way back. I think they called it like a something river, Arctic River, or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
whatever.
I saw that. And where there's been snow, they're talking about roofs caving in and the weight of the ice and the water and the snow and all that stuff. And so, hey man, be safe. I know we got a lot of family on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So I definitely send out my regards. And if there's nothing else, we'll catch you next week.
See you next week.
All right, brother. Thanks.